Hey friends, happy Sunday and welcome back to another week of What's for Dinner. If you're new here, hello and welcome. I'm Taylor. I'm a stay-at-home wife and mom, and I share these What's for Dinner videos every Sunday to give you some new meal ideas and motivate you to cook more for your family. That's why I started doing these videos originally, because I wasn't cooking as often as I wanted to, and I figured that if I recorded everything that we had for dinner and shared it with y'all, that would motivate me to cook more and to try new recipes. I try to share about 3 new recipes every week. We had some really good dinners this week, and I'm excited to share them with you. As always, any recipes will be listed in the description box down below. Now let's go ahead and get into this week's What's for Dinner. Friday night we had pizza pasta, and this is a family favorite that I have shared many times here on my channel. So usually while I'm cooking my meat, I would be boiling a pot of salted water on the back eye and like kind of multitasking and doing 2 things at once. But the front large eye on my stove went out and I wasn't able to use it like all week, and so that made cooking a little difficult and also recording because of the angle where I have to put my camera to record this back eye. So bear with me this week. I actually did just get a whole new stove today, so next week's video will be fine. But for this week I had to mostly cook on that back eye, which was a little difficult, kind of awkward, like reaching back there to cook, but we dealt with it. So I brought some salted water to a boil, and then I cooked up about 8 ounces of pasta, and then when that was done I drained it and left that to the side. And then in the same pot I started cooking up some ground sausage. You can use ground beef or whatever you want, but I did sausage this time, and I seasoned that with a little garlic powder, onion powder, and some Italian seasoning. And then when that was about halfway cooked through, I added in some chopped up peppers. I did like some little mini sweet peppers because that's what I had on hand, and then also some chopped up pepperoni. And I just let that cook down and let it cook until my sausage was completely browned. And then I added in some marinara sauce. I start with about half the jar and then add in more if I need it. And then I added in the pasta, and then I could tell I needed more sauce, so I added in a little bit more sauce. And then I added in some mozzarella cheese, and then again I was like, nope, I want the whole jar of sauce. So I ended up adding in the whole jar of sauce, and I rinsed it with a little bit of water, got that in there. Now you could take this and transfer it to a casserole dish if you wanted to, but I was not feeling like doing that, so I just topped it with some mozzarella cheese, put the lid back on it, let it sit on low for about 5 minutes to let that cheese get nice and melty. And then this was ready to serve. If you do want to bake it, you can put it in the oven on 350 for like 15 minutes, and you can even just broil it to get the cheese on top nice and brown and crispy. So I was keeping it super simple this night. We just had this, no salad or anything, but of course a salad is always good on the side with it. Saturday night we had smash burgers and then some onion rings and tater tots. And typically I would make my smash burgers in my really big cast iron pan on the stove. That's how they turn out the best. But since my favorite eye was not working, and I felt like it would be awkward to be like reaching all the way on the back eye to smash the burgers, I made these on my Cuisinart like griddle, which is not my favorite way to make them. That's why I did not film me doing it. I will leave a video down below of me making them on the stovetop because they just don't get like the crispiness like in on that griddle pan, like on the griddle they do in the cast iron pan. So definitely recommend either using like a Blackstone for smash burgers or a cast iron pan on the stove. Sunday night I made a creamy pesto chicken and gnocchi dish. This is one of those meals that I just kind of wing it every time I make it, and it always turns out about the same. So I am starting off by heating up some oil and butter in a large skillet, and then I'm going to add my gnocchi in there and toss them to make sure they're coated with that oil and butter. And then I just let them cook for about 10 minutes total, just until they got like nice and browned and crispy. While my gnocchi was cooking, I got my chicken ready. So I took some boneless, skinless chicken breast and just cut it into little bite-sized pieces. And then I seasoned it all over with some garlic powder, onion powder, Italian seasoning, and salt and pepper. When When the gnocchi was done, I removed it from the pan and then added in a little bit more olive oil, and then I added in my chicken and I spread that in a nice even layer and then let it cook without touching it. You want to get it like a nice sear on the bottom, so let it cook without touching it for probably about 5 minutes, and then I flipped everything over and let it continue to cook until the chicken was completely cooked through. When the chicken was done, I removed it from the pan and set it to the side and covered it with a piece of foil just so it could stay kind of warm. And then to my pan, I added in some diced sun-dried tomatoes and some minced garlic, and I let that cook for about a minute. Then I added in about 1 cup of pesto and 1 cup of heavy cream. I stirred everything really well so it was nice and combined, and then I let that come up to like a little bit of a boil, and then I reduced the heat to a medium low and let that simmer for about 5 minutes. After simmering for about 5 minutes, the sauce had thickened up a little bit, so I added in about half a cup of Parmesan cheese, and then I added in my chicken and my gnocchi, and then this was ready to eat. And to go with this, we just had some garlic bread that I made, the Chef Chamois garlic butter, and some leftover hot dog buns. This meal was delicious. It always turns out really good. Sometimes I make it with gnocchi, sometimes I just make it with regular pasta. You would just boil up some pasta according to the package directions and then add that in at the end like I did the gnocchi. Monday night I made this super easy like one pot hamburger helper lasagna type meal. So I started off by browning up 1 pound of ground beef, and I seasoned that with a little bit of onion powder, garlic powder, oregano, and basil. Now, somehow I either lost a clip or didn't press record when I thought I did. So once my ground beef was browned, I drained off any excess grease, and then I added in 2 cups of chicken broth, 3 ounces of tomato paste, some onion powder, garlic powder, oregano, and basil, 1/4 teaspoon of sugar, and some salt and pepper. And then I stirred everything together really well and brought that to a boil over a high heat. And then when it started like simmering, I turned it down to like medium and let that simmer for about 5 minutes because it needs to reduce. Once that liquid had reduced some, then I put in my pasta. You could use 2.5 cups of the dry pasta that looks kind of like lasagna noodles that are little tiny ones, or you can just break up some lasagna, which is what I did, and I did 2.5 cups of broken lasagna noodles, and then 2 cups of milk. And I actually heated up my milk in the microwave for about 1.5 minutes so it was warm going into this hot tomato mixture. That way my cold milk didn't like curdle. Then I reduced the heat to a medium low and let this cook for 7 minutes, and then I tested my noodles to see if they were done, and they weren't quite done, so I let it cook for a couple of minutes more. And then once my noodles were done, I added in some cheese. I did some Colby Jack and some mozzarella cheese. To go with this, we had a loaf of Italian bread. I had this from Aldi in my freezer, so I thawed it out and then baked it. And then we had some of the Chef Chamois garlic butter on that. And then this is how it looked all plated up. This was delicious, super easy, love one pot meals, and I will definitely make this one again. Tuesday night, I made a chicken with garlic Parmesan rice. So I'm starting off with some chicken breast here. It's boneless, skinless chicken breast, and I am cutting them up into like chicken tender type pieces. The recipe that I'm following wanted you to use chicken tenders. It's not completely necessary. I didn't have to do this. I could have just used the breasts instead, but I figured it would cook faster if I did the little tenders. You could also cut it into bite-sized pieces if you wanted to. So then I seasoned the chicken all over with some salt, pepper, and garlic powder. And then I heated up some oil in my skillet, and I just put those in there and let them cook for probably about 5 minutes on a medium-high heat. Let them get a nice, good sear. Flip them over, let them get a good sear on the other side as well, and then make sure that they are cooked all the way through. And then when they were done, I removed them from the pan and added in 1 stick of butter, a bunch of minced garlic, and some red pepper flakes. And I just let that cook for a couple of minutes on medium heat. And the recipe wanted you to add in half a cup of white wine, but I don't have white wine on hand. So I just did half a cup of chicken broth and I let that simmer for about 5 minutes. And then I took about 3 tablespoons of that and set it to the side for later. And then I added in my uncooked white rice. I did 1.5 cups of white rice. I tossed it in that butter mixture, and then I'm going to add in the rest of my chicken broth. I did 3 more cups of chicken broth. And then I brought that to a boil. Once it came to a boil, I reduced the heat to medium-low, covered my pan, and put a lid on it for 20 minutes. The recipe said to stir it often while it was cooking, but this is a non-stick pan, and I always was told, like, when you cook rice, you're not supposed to take the lid off of it. If you want it to cook properly, you want that liquid to stay in there. So I just left it alone for the 20 minutes, and it came out perfect. After 20 minutes, all of the liquid was absorbed. It was done and it turned out great. So I tossed it and then I just spread it back out in an even layer, and then I put on some Parmesan cheese, and then I stuck my chicken back in the pan and I let this sit for 5 minutes with the lid on it just to get that cheese nice and melty. And then I drizzled it with that remaining 3 tablespoons of the pan sauce and topped it with some parsley. This was delicious. It was actually just me and Lily eating dinner at dinner time because Elijah went to dinner with Grandpa and then Andy got home later. But we both loved it. Andy said he loved it later, and we just had it with some green beans on the side. Wednesday night was taco night, and I had a helper in the kitchen, and Lily helped me cook up the taco meat. She actually did most of the work while I worked on cooking up the Mexican rice in the Instant Pot. So the recipe for my Mexican rice is always linked down below when I make it. There is a video on YouTube. If you just search Taylor Elmore rice, it'll probably be the first video that pops up. So we had ground beef, some black beans, our rice. So here's Lily's plate. She had some tomatoes on her tacos as well as some Ortega taco sauce. Elijah had some lettuce. And then I had all of the things. Plus I had that jalapeno, cilantro, lime crunch stuff from Trader Joe's. It's delicious on tacos. And I actually added it to the beans this night too. And Lily said they're the best black beans she has ever had. She absolutely loves them. We all liked them, but Lily could not stop talking about them. Thursday night, that brings us to our crock pot meal of the week. We had crock pot red beans and rice. This was a new recipe that I was trying. So I started off by washing up 1 pound of red beans. Just want to wash them and pick out any like broken beans or any rocks, because that can happen too. Just rinse them really well. And then I got those in my crock pot. Then I added in 7 cups of water, and then I made 29 ounces of chicken broth. It said 2 cans of Campbell's chicken broth. I assume that's like 14.5 ounce cans, like a standard size. So I just did another 29 ounces of chicken broth. I did water and nor chicken bouillon. And then I added in 1 green bell pepper, 1 medium onion, and 3 celery stalks, all chopped. I chopped those up the night before to make it easy to put together in the morning. And then I added in 1 pound of some smoked sausage and 2 tablespoons of Tony's Creole seasoning. I just gave that all a good stir. And then I let this cook on high for 6 hours. And I actually had a lot of things to do this day, so I started it earlier than I needed to. The recipe said to let it cook on high for 7 hours, but I was going to be gone at the time that I would have needed to start it for it to cook for 7 hours. So I cooked it for 6 hours on high, and then I came home. We were home for a little while, and I turned it down to low, and it cooked on low for another 3 hours while we were at martial arts. I did like grocery shopping and stuff this day, and then we came home, put all the groceries and stuff away, was home for like 2 hours, and then we left and went to the park and martial arts. So it was a busy day, and this crock pot meal was great to come home to. So when we came home, I actually had some white rice in my Instant Pot that I put on the delay start function before we left. And so that was done right when we walked in the door. And all I had to do was take out a little bit of the red beans and smash them up. That's personal preference. You don't have to do that. You could either not smash any. You could smash them all if you want to. I just took out about a cup of beans and smashed them, added them back in, let it sit for about 10 minutes. And it kind of thickens up the like juice, the sauce a little bit, and that's how we like it. So then we had that over our white rice, and it was delicious. It turned out so good. I will definitely make this recipe again in the crock pot. If you know, the last 2 times I made it in the Instant Pot, like I don't know what happened, something went wrong, but this recipe in the crock pot turned out wonderful. And that is going to be it for this week's What's for Dinner. I hope that you all got some new meal ideas. If you plan on trying any of these meals, let me know which ones in the comments down below. And if you made it here to the end, make sure you leave me a heart emoji or just a comment letting me know you made it to the end in the comments down below. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see y'all in the next one. Bye!